Hi and welcome back. I'm Caroline Best of the Dow Horsemanship. This is Lovey. I think you all know Love. Welcome back to our weekly show on our YouTube channel, Everything Horses and More. And today we're going to be talking about bucking, rearing, and refusing, recognizing top line issues on your horse. So in today's video, rearing, bucking, and refusing, recognizing top line issues in our horses, know that this is a snippet on YouTube, meaning it's 5 to 10 minutes long, and the full length video you can find in our Everything Horses and More video library. So it's sold separately, it's not free. So if you're interested in hearing the full length explanation and demonstration of this video, check out our video library. I'm going to read first because there's a lot of information, and then I'm going to show you all what I'm talking about on both Lovey and Joey. Thank you, Love Bug. Hold on, babes. So how many of us have had not just our horses bucking or rearing or refusing anything, refusing to jump, refusing ground poles, refusing to get saddled, mounted, just refusing any type of training. I think we've all been there. And it can mean many, many things. For me, as a professional trainer, I always want to rule out the physical first. So if I see a behavior in my horse that I'm not used to, that's not common, it's not a pattern, I'm definitely going to be looking at the physical first. And to me, that's the most obvious. And in riding, specifically in riding, and when we're dealing with horses that rear, refuse, buck, show any type of stress when being ridden, there are 3 particular areas that can cause it. And it's not always about the back, but we're going to take a look at the back specifically today in this video. But it can also be, number 2, about the teeth, and number 3, about your horse's hooves and how balanced they are or imbalanced. So a horse with a weak, underdeveloped top line cannot perform at its best. And we're going to talk about why. And this is a really big issue. I see this all the time, you guys, and that's why it's really important to talk about it. It's an issue that I am constantly aware of when I am training or schooling horses. So again, if my horse's feet aren't balanced or there's something wrong with their teeth, it can affect how they're moving. And if I'm not paying attention to how they're moving on the ground and underneath of me, it's going to get worse. So again, a horse with a weak, underdeveloped top line cannot perform at its best, causing many of the riding behavioral issues we often face, such as bucking, kicking out, rearing, refusing to do X, Y, and Z, under saddle, such as lateral movements, lead changes, even trying to supple your horse and get them to round longitudinally. Now, I don't have any horses here that have sunken, underdeveloped top lines, because they're all in my, if the camera wants to look at Lovey, who's a 16-2, almost 16-3 hand thoroughbred, off the track. She has a beautiful top line. So I don't have any horses here, but we are going to show you pictures that we downloaded from the internet. You know, I think it's pretty obvious when we have a sunken. But I want to demonstrate that and train your eye. So we do have some pictures. But the Roachback is really tough. And we're gonna talk a little bit more about what that looks like, and I'll be able to show you Roachback on Joey. So I'm going to spend most of our time talking about Roachback. This is a common issue found more in OTTBs, off-the-track thoroughbreds, eventing horses, barrel racers, and jumpers. Basically, thoroughbreds that are raced, then they change career and become professional. They change careers and become barrel racing horses and eventers or jumpers. So Roachback is an area that is rarely recognized, as I mentioned, or understood, hi Jojo, and one that causes so many lameness and behavioral issues, as well as permanent damage to the spine, which is kissing spine. So we are particularly looking at Joey's lumbar here, and then his spine. And so this lumbar is convex, it's round. And so that's bad. That's a roachback. A normal top line, a healthy top line. And so what happens with healthy top lines, what you want to see is a dip. You want the back to dip and have a natural curve, concave. So you want it to naturally dip down. You don't want to see the spine raised or round like my hand. You can change this if it's not too severe. It can be changed, and we're going to talk about that in this. So roachbacks are caused by excessive flexion of the lumbar spine, and that's that area, the lumbar back here. Of the lumbar spine and sometimes the thoracic spine. They can be congenital, genetic, at birth, or functional, which is what Joey has, caused by the way that he's moving, just the dysfunction, plus the way he was being trained. It's just horrible all the way around for racing. So historically, there is little we can do for the congenital when they're born that way, backs, but there's a huge amount we can do for a functional roachback, which is what Joey is. What we don't want with roachbacks, if you don't take care of it, Jojo, if you don't take care of the roachback, it can become kissing spine. So that's what we want to avoid. In functional scoliosis, we develop a lateral curve to the spine, but this is held mainly by muscular and fascial tension. It's reversible. It's reversible. So if you can get this lumbar early enough, it is reversible. We can fix it. In horses, the lumbar spine is a vulnerable region. It is for us too, the lumbar, our lower backs. The thoracic spine is supported by the rib cage and sternum, and the sacrum is supported by the pelvis. The lumbar spine is the connection between these two regions. There are 6 lumbar vertebrae in the horse and a robust network of muscular tendons, ligaments, and fascial support. If there is an issue within the lumbar spine itself, such as the lumbosacral joint restriction, or an issue that causes the lumbar spine to protect itself by remaining in flexion, the spring action of the lumbar spine decreases or stops completely. And so you end up having a horse that can't use its hind end correctly, ends up hollowing out like I'm doing. You know, you get that U-neck, over-enlarged use of the muscle becomes enlarged as it's used this way instead of rounding the top line. So as I mentioned, let's see, normal spine movement also stops as it reaches the lumbar spine, and the horse often feels like 2 different horses, reasonably free moving in front and disengaged and tensed and choppy in the hind end. And they'll be here again, really hollowed out and tight. A consequence of this dysfunction of the lumbar spine is the appearance of a roached spine. So the lumbosacral joint is usually the first to undergo this flexion, followed by the lumbar and the thoracic segments respectively. So again, Lovey's got a pretty healthy back. As discussed above, a roached back may be congenital, but more often is a functional adaptation of the lumbar spine by the horse to cope with a number of factors, including poor saddle fit, injury from slips, trips, falls, incorrect hoof care, dental, all the above together, compensating for pain in another area of the body, compromised core, muscle strength, or inappropriate riding or training. So prevention of the lumbar dysfunction Also includes a correctly structured training and strengthening program, especially for the core muscles, especially the abdomen, which play a huge role in stabilizing the lumbar. I offer a complete strengthening and suppling curriculum program in my work, and one that includes straightness, imbalance training for self-carriage and collection. Often I get questions, well, I've been doing pole work and grid work, and I'm like, well, yes, pole work does help your horse contract their abdomen and open up their top line and round their backs. But there's a lot of, it can be very complex teaching your horse to do that type of work. And then whether you're riding or lunging them over poles, often horses will trip. I've had this in my experience. They stress out. They don't know how to regulate themselves to create the rhythm needed and necessary to do pole work correctly. And it can be really challenging for you to learn how to help your horse do pole work correctly. Whereas if you do have to learn how to lunge correctly too. But it's just less, I think there's less complexity in that. There's enough already in lunging. It is an art. Thank you, and may you always be one with your horse.